So, hi everyone, it's Sarah Turner here and Gregor Findlay from the Coaching Question podcast. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about this approaching challenge that many leaders are facing of creating a hybrid working environment. So, following the forced remote working that the pandemic has thrown all of us into, many organizations are now facing into how do we return to the office and but also kind of benefit and keep hold of all the benefits of remote working. So Gregor has a model that we want to take you through. We were going to do this as a podcast, but because it's a model, because it's visual, we thought we'd put a short video out there about it. So Gregor, would you like to introduce us to the model so we can start to talk through it?
Yeah, I think this comes into when you think about the development of leaders, it's part of a perspective adeptness. And we work with lots of people and they've nearly all got a try hard driver. You know, they've got a bit of programming that says, I'm okay if I can try hard. They like taking on big challenges. And one of the downsides of that adaptation is that quite often you'll see things as either or rather than also and.
Yeah.
And so people can get into a mindset of, no, I want everybody in the office or I want everybody at home. When you get a real tension. But the data shows that, the companies that are more successful delivering net shareholder value over 10 years, they're the ones that actively manage tensions.
Yeah.
And this Polarity Mapping tool I'm going to share is a really great way you can get your leadership team together and you can really go through stuff and build something you can actively manage attention. And so I'm going to share my screen. So like any consultants always want 2x2 grids. This starts off with a 2x2 grid. And the tension we were really talking about here is how do we build this hybrid model? Is it office working or is it remote working? So those are the two sides of the polarities. But this could be, do I want profitability or market share?
Yeah.
Do I want centralized, decentralized? There's a whole point about management today is about managing all these polarities.
Yeah.
And what we would do as a team is we would say, well, what's a higher purpose? So I'm just going to give a really simple one. I want the happiest people, I want the most productivity, and the happiest, most profitable customers.
So just to illustrate this then, so this might be get an executive or a leadership team together and say, okay, we know we're heading into this hybrid model of working. So for us, what does that ultimately look like if that was a success? And I guess that would then translate into our business strategy, how it would help us achieve our business strategy, and I guess potentially also the kind of culture that we would be creating as well.
Yeah, for example, my strategy might be about really rapid growth, the market share, and therefore my ability to attract and retain talent is really core to my competitive strategy. Now, that's going to generally put you towards more of the remote working side. That's what the research shows, that more people that gives you more upside there and more flexibility on that side. So yeah, you're going to really have a more granular, higher purpose for the organization. And the same when we look at the deeper fear. My deepest fear is we screw it up. We end up with unhappy people, unhappy customers, and our productivity goes down and our costs go up. Now that's a nightmare, but it's good to really highlight it.
And I guess for me, what I'm thinking about when I look at that is, if this really doesn't work, then we're going to have in groups and out groups. We're not going to have inclusion. We're going to have all sorts of challenges culturally around how we bring people together and how people, and to what extent people feel they belong. And that ultimately could impact on performance.
Yeah, so everybody, if it's sales or finance or whomever, they're all going to be bringing their own deepest fears. And you work a lot in diversity and inclusion, so immediately you're thinking about in-groups and out-groups and diversity, inclusion going down. So that would be your representation. Sales would be thinking, I've got, I don't know what sales are thinking. That it's going to depend on what you're selling.
Yeah.
So what you do then is you really need to workshop this, and you can workshop it virtually just as well as you can workshop it face to face. But you're looking at the upsides, downsides of both. And so if you look at the positive results of focusing on office working, the positive results to focus on remote working, and we do the same for the negative results.
Okay.
So again, we're looking at what are the outcomes rather than the what's. We're looking at the outcomes.
Yeah.
So we've just chucked some things together there. But if I was to put this list together, I mean, what stands out for you is a top concern,
Yeah.
or
So
top positive result rather.
when I think about the positive results of being in the office, for me, it's absolutely that social side. So it's the social cohesion, the opportunity to collaborate or to innovate, and those kind of casual, what we would call probably those water cooler moments. So there's informal interactions.
Yeah, and I think to the Culture Code by Daniel
Coil.
Coyle, thank you. But he talks about the Allen curve, and basically, you don't want people less than 8 meters, more than 8 meters apart. And he says when it's under 6 meters, communication goes off the roof. Less than 50 meters, and more than 50 meters, it dies.
Yeah.
So you got to try and think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the same positive results on remote working. I mean, what comes out for you?
Um, For me, I think it's that work-life balance. So, I mean, I live quite a long way from London, so when I have to get into London, it's quite a long commute, and that eats into my day. Which when I'm trying to juggle that with kids and drop off and all the rest of it, it just has an impact. So it means I don't have to worry about any of that because I just get up, have a cup of coffee, drop the kids to school, and I'm at my desk.
Yeah, and if we look at the McKinsey article, there's a real difference in terms of how much time you want to spend in the office and at home, depending on whether or not you've got family,
Yeah.
a young family. So yeah, and I'm the one that comes out for me is I'm thinking about speed, but that's because some of my clients at the moment, that's the most important thing. And so, but then we look at the negative results. So this means that the people who are really for office working, they can give all their positives out, and the same on the remote working. But now the critics of office working can really come to the fore,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're looking at all the different aspects. I mean, I was again. We're going to share some McKinsey articles, but I'd never thought about. They're talking about micro locations or micro
Right.
hubs,
Right.
and
Yeah.
how it really impacts your costs when you're looking at real estate, and this is a
Massive.
big question.
Mm.
Um,
Absolutely, because I think offices now need to think about, well, what are people going to come into the office for? So if we've got people who are spending percentage of their week at home and a percentage of their week in the office, what are they coming in here for? And I think, the space, how the space is being used, as you say, micro hubs, do we cut the space up? Use it in different ways. So I think there's absolutely something to be thought about there. I think there's quite an interesting challenge with the whole the vaccine, um, and people who haven't been vaccinated, just worries and concerns about how you manage all of that.
could cause some real tensions.
Mm,
Could cause some
mm,
real tensions.
mm,
And you do the same for negative results of focusing on remote working.
mm.
And the big thing there, I think both of us would agree, is mental health and burnout.
Yeah, yeah, and I think still there's loss of structure. I mean, we were talking about this a year ago, but it's still there. We've been doing it for so long now. Just the blurred lines between home and work, and people working longer, and logging back on again at 9 o'clock at night or whatever. It's a real challenge.
And it's a much bigger load on leaders. I mean, basically, the McKinsey article says the more geographically dispersed the team, the less effective the leadership becomes.
Mm,
I think that just highlights that the current model of leadership becomes less effective. What we need is different models of leadership that really, and part of your job now is to create structure for your employees in a virtual environment where the structure was just there before. Anyway, so you can see that. So you're on this. So this is this is an exercise that takes a good deal of time, and you probably want to spend it. You're not going to do it all at once.
Yeah, and what I like about this is we've obviously put our own thoughts in there, but actually for each business, there will be different things that they
Absolutely.
want to put in these boxes. So just to
Absolutely.
facilitate that conversation and see what comes up. And it also enables everybody to have a voice, and to share their own personal views as
Yeah.
opposed to there being one or the other.
Absolutely. So then the real action orientated will be thinking, well, so what?
Yeah.
We don't want analysis paralysis. So on the top side, you're looking at what are the action steps? What are the action steps we can take on both sides to gain or maintain the positive results?
Mm. And when
And
oh, sorry, Gregor.
no, go ahead.
Well, when I was looking at this, what I was thinking about is, it's almost as if we're kind of creating some new ground rules for how we're going to work together in this new hybrid way of working. So it might be that we agree, what are we coming into the office for? How do we use that time? What meetings do we always have virtually, for example? So it's almost new ways of agreeing on new ground rules for how we operate as a team.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to a CEO at the moment, and he's taken the advantage of ever being out of the office to refurbish the office. How does he maximise the office working that is done when people come in?
Absolutely.
And so we're reshaping the office environment to help fit that. So that you can, with the changed environment, you're going to have different action steps. But this is where the model really comes together for me. You've done all this work, but this is a complex adaptive system. This is not complicated. It's not something. It's complex, and there's lots of things going on all the time, and we want to manage that tension. So what the final part of the model is this: you look at early warnings on both sides. What are the measurable indicators that tell us we're getting into the downside of one of or others of those poles?
Yeah, and when we were thinking about the deeper fear a few minutes ago, one of the things that you talked about is employees who weren't engaged. And many organizations will have like an employee engagement survey or a pulse survey they might do every 6 months.
Yep.
But what we were talking about is actually maybe there needs to be something that's a bit more dynamic and a bit more frequent so that we're having this sort of regular heartbeat of checking in with people about how they're feeling, what's working well, what isn't working well, so that we can watch out for those red flags as they come up.
And there are tools that are available online that are real-time employee and customer satisfaction tools. And when they're available, and if people are still doing annual or biannual surveys, I really do wonder what, you're spending your money the wrong way. The stuff is available. You can do mini surveys. You can immediately survey or all sorts of stuff. Something comes up and you can immediately survey and you can get immediate reactions to it. And so you can be very, very dynamic on that. So that's the model. We could spend ages on this, but we found a couple of good McKinsey articles. We might put forward a couple of more real-time employee satisfaction tools and might put them into the details under the video. But I just wanted to share this model because I think it is so useful for our time and can be applied anywhere in leadership.
Absolutely. And I think what I just want to add there is, nobody has this completely nailed yet. We're all learning. And so the more that we can get input and views from people, what works, what doesn't work, what ideas they've come up with. If you take this model and you use it and you find it helpful, please share your feedback and let's all share our learnings because it's a whole new world.
And if ever there was a need for community, and it's now.
Yeah.
It's now. And so, this is our venture into doing some video rather than audio with our podcast, but we're in the middle of season 2 of our podcast. So please check it out and we'll see you another time. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening.